DFS community, welcome into the Week 14 edition of one of the most accurate DFS shows in the industry. This is episode number 59 of the Adjusted Line Play Report, where we take a deep dive into the play in the trenches to determine game script and player outcomes. This show is presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. I am your host, Todd Hoffman. You can find myself over on Twitter at Todzilla1337, and you can find Zilla Fantasy Elite over on Twitter at Zilla Fantasy. As always, folks, today's show is powered by Rain Total Body Fuel. Looking to make it rain some cash in DFS? Tune in to the Adjusted Line Play Report from Zilla Fantasy Elite and follow host Todd Hoffman while he delivers the most accurate DFS advice in the industry and make it rain. All right, today's flavor, my favorite, white gummy bear. We are going to get that kicked off so we can get our show started on the right foot. Oh, man, that is good stuff. All right. We are good to go this Saturday morning. We, as always, are going to kick it off with the top Vegas game totals. Go all the way through that main slate. There are 11 games on the main slate, and then hit up the Sunday night and Monday night games and kind of give you an island game perspective similar to the Thursday night theory. So if this is one of your first times watching the Adjusted Line Play Report, you're not exactly sure what the heck all these numbers on the screen mean, go and look at the Thursday night theory videos that I put out. I go into depth in a Thursday night game setting to say what each one of those particular numbers means and how I approach these particular games based off of the numbers that we see here. So if you're not sure what those are, go check out the Thursday night theories. Come back here and get yourself right for the Sunday night matchups here in Week 14 of the NFL season in 2023. All right, getting it started with the number one game on the slate here, Kansas City and Buffalo. We have Buffalo traveling into Kansas City, and Kansas City actually the 1-point home favorites here. It's a 48.5 Vegas game total. It's been bet down, I believe, a little bit from the beginning of the week. But number one game total on the slate. Kansas City at 24.75 is the second highest game total, team total on the slate. And then Buffalo actually at 23.75 is the third highest team total on the slate. So got two of the top three teams already in the first game of the main slate here. So getting into the away team, we have Buffalo, number one in offensive pass protection. That's the adjusted sack rate versus Kansas City, number two in the defensive pass rush. I would expect Kansas City to be able to get after Buffalo a little bit here. Josh Allen certainly mobile. I think that's part of the reason why the adjusted sack rate there for Buffalo is so low. But Kansas City has been applying pressure for most of the season on the quarterbacks. I wouldn't expect a ton different here against Buffalo, so they might need to get the ball out a little bit quicker. But as we see, Buffalo should be able to handle that for the most part. But I would expect Buffalo to be under a little bit more pressure than they're perhaps used to in their particular pass game. Offensive pass DVOA for Buffalo, number 2. Kansas City, number 5 in the defensive pass DVOA. So really close matchup there. In these particular scenarios, kind of say studs eat. So looking at Steph Diggs in this particular game as somebody that's maybe going to come out of the woodworks. Drafted him as one of those high-end wide receivers, and he hasn't really came through in a major way so far this season. I know he's had a few games here and there, but it hasn't been consistently great. I think this is a matchup where he can get right. Others that are in a matchup where they need to get the ball out a little bit quicker could be more like a Khalil Shakir, keeping it underneath. The running backs could certainly get involved, James Cook. And then I don't mind the tight ends either. Dawson Knox could be coming back this week, which could change the entire offensive scheme. That also remains to be seen with the new offensive coordinator there in Buffalo, if they run 12 or 11 personnel a little bit more often when Dawson Knox comes back there. But looking at him and Kincaid as well in the pass game. But really, I'm favoring Stephon Diggs in this particular matchup. Getting into the run blocking, this is where it gets juicy for Buffalo. Number 4 in offensive run blocking, Kansas City 26 in stopping the run. Buffalo number 7 in offensive run DVOA, Kansas City 28th in defensive run DVOA. We've seen James Cook with the new offensive coordinator there the last couple of weeks be getting like 16, 20 carries a game. It certainly seems like they're leaning on the run game a little bit more, or at least leaning on James Cook a little bit more. And I really like him in this particular matchup. I know, DFS purposes, I don't know how popular he's going to be. Haven't looked at that info yet, but you think of Buffalo and Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, and you think the pass game, and that's how you're going to have to attack it. If it's going to be a shootout, people are going to be looking at this particular game and the pass game options. I don't mind James Cook in this particular situation, especially as a leverage play. If the pass games are going to be super popular, James Cook be very, very good in this particular matchup against Kansas City, especially if he's getting some of these dump offs if they need to get the ball out quick. James Cook could be potential slate breaker this week. Not gonna make the sound for the slate breaker, but certainly somebody I'm very interested in. Now, getting into the Kansas City side, they are favored here by the 1 point. They're number 2 in offensive pass protection, so right behind Buffalo in that category. Buffalo number 8 in the defensive pass rush, so they've been able to get after the quarterback as well. Kansas City probably needs to get the ball out a little bit quicker. It's going to lead to a few more dump offs, a little bit more underneath stuff. Travis Kelce's going to be certainly fine in that category. Kadarius Toney doesn't really run routes in the NFL or NFL style routes. It's all underneath gadgety stuff. You could see him get involved. Rashid Rice seems to be the wide receiver who is, probably the safest option in terms of any wide receiving options there, and not having to go deep or anything like that. Just based off of this pass rush with Buffalo maybe getting after Kansas City a little bit more often than Kansas City would perhaps like in this game. It's a little bit different story when you look at the DVOA. Kansas City number 5 in pass DVOA. Buffalo number 22. Buffalo has been giving up a lot of explosive plays. Despite their pass rush being pretty solid, they still do give up some explosive plays. So looking at explosive players on Kansas City, we obviously know Kelce's pretty solid. We've seen Justin Watson be very effective in a few games this season. Wouldn't be shocked to see him have a pretty decent game here with 5 or 6 targets, and one of those being a little bit more of an explosive play, 20, 30, 40 yards. Hopefully one of them a touchdown if you're starting them, but just know that Buffalo does give up some explosive plays here. Kansas City's been relatively explosive in terms of some of these pass game options here and there, so wouldn't be shocked to see some explosive plays here come from the Kansas City pass game. Now, getting into the run game, Buffalo is number 5 in stopping the run. Kansas City middle of the pack at 14 in offensive run blocking. Nothing really to write home about here. Kansas City probably going to struggle a little bit running the ball. We do have Isaiah Pacheco ruled out, so it's going to be for sure Clyde Edwards-Helaire in there. It sounds like Jerick McKinnon's kind of questionable whether or not he's going to play. Probably more on the side of limited if he does play. Or more of a, not necessarily doubtful, but if he does play this week, he's probably going to be fairly limited. So watch out for Clyde Edwards-Helaire to get the bulk of the workload here in Kansas City in that run game this week. The run DVOA, Kansas City top 10, they're at number 10. Buffalo middle of the pack at number 16. Again, nothing really to write home about. The big thing for Kansas City side is this pass DVOA being pretty extensive. Kansas City might need to get the ball out a little bit quicker, but they could be very explosive plays. Really, what this is telling me is Travis Kelce is probably going to have a pretty solid game. Hey, if they need to get the ball out a little bit quicker, and those passes probably going to funnel more towards him getting open there as a tight end and being explosive, we could see him with one of those classic 10 or 12 receptions for 150 yards and 2 touchdown type games against Buffalo, especially if the scoring is going back and forth in this particular matchup, as Vegas is kind of predicting. All right, that's the number one game on the slate. Let's get into the number two game on the slate. We have Seattle and San Francisco. We'll kind of buzz through these maybe a little bit quicker than we did. 10 minutes here to get through that first game. But Seattle, San Francisco, big favor here for San Francisco at home. It's a 46.5 Vegas game total, second best on these slates. We have San Francisco at 29.75 for their team implied total. That's almost 5 more than Kansas City's team implied total or thereabouts, giving San Francisco the number one team implied total on this main slate. Seattle at 16.75 is 18th. Again, that's out of 22 teams on the main slate this week. So keep that in mind. They should be behind by quite a bit, according to Vegas in this matchup. Seattle side, 16-16 in that offensive pass protection. Nothing to write home about there. San Francisco, defense is pretty solid there. So, keep them in mind, I guess. If Seattle's going to be passing a bunch, they will have a lot of opportunities likely to generate sacks and some potential turnovers there. Pass DVOA, though, San Francisco, number 3 in the pass DVOA on defense. Seattle, number 12. What this is telling me is that Seattle's probably going to struggle moving the ball a little bit, even though the time, it's not necessarily a hindrance in the pocket there for Geno. The pass DVOA here for San Francisco at number 3, Seattle at number 12. Probably indicative that Seattle's going to have to kind of methodically move the ball in the air in the pass attack to kind of get the ball rolling there downhill to score their points in the air game. Getting into that run blocking side, Seattle number 16, San Francisco number 15. Again, nothing to write home about there. Studs eat type of scenario, especially with the run DVOA 22, San Francisco 18 in the run DVOA. This is looking like perhaps the better of the two matchups. Seattle's run game, it's not as bad of a mismatch as that pass game DVOA there against the San Francisco defense. Got a lot of injuries there. Walker sounds like he's maybe more on the doubtful end. Charbonnet also injured, very limited. It's a possibility that neither of those two actually plays in this particular matchup, and maybe they don't want to risk injury to them in a game where they're projected to lose by 13 points on the road. If that's the case, DJ Dallas does become sort of a free square, if you will, in a cash game style lineup. He's going to be cheap, and then he may be getting quite a few dump offs. He has been, or has shown himself to be, a pretty decent receiving running back when he's gotten run, and we've seen him score touchdowns as well when he's gotten his opportunity to start and get the vast majority of the workload. On the San Francisco side, 21st in offensive pass protection. Seattle in the red there, 26th in the pass rush. San Francisco probably going to have a little bit more time than they're used to throw the ball, which is really good because they're super explosive. They're number 1 in the offensive pass DVOA, Seattle 26th. They've been pretty bad against the pass. Brock Purdy certainly in play for both cash and tournaments. Kind of pick your poison in terms of who you want him to throw the ball to. In a situation like this where they have a little bit more time to throw the ball, I'm going to be avoiding Deebo. I think he's going to be a little bit more popular just because of recency bias. He's been super successful recently. I would go more the Ayuk and Kittle route here in the pass game, especially when they have time. Those are the two that benefit the most from those particular situations. Getting into the run game, that's also a pretty good matchup here for San Francisco. Number 3 versus number 12. And then in the run DVOA, number 3 versus 19, obviously wheels up for McCaffrey here. In a situation where they're very explosive in the pass game, we could certainly see Ayuk or Kittle, get some long touchdowns here. But if they don't, and they're just moving the ball methodically down there, we could see one of those Christian McCaffrey monster weeks where he has 120, 150 total yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns in a matchup like this. So don't be shocked. Stacking Brock Purdy route, and then you see Christian McCaffrey get 3 or 4 of those touchdowns and kind of ruin that stack if you don't have him included. Certainly think McCaffrey with Purdy could be an option as well. Always a threat to score through the air, so keep that in mind. Just onslaught stack. Get McCaffrey, Ayuk, and Kittle and Purdy, and then try to punt the rest of your positions. That's going to be an expensive play, but certainly should be scoring some points there. All right, we got two games tied for the third highest on the slate, Indianapolis and Cincinnati, which we'll get to first here. And then we also have Denver and the Chargers, which we'll do second. So Indianapolis heading into Cincinnati. This is now a 2-point favorite for Cincinnati at home. This used to be a 1.5 point favorite for Indianapolis as of Tuesday. So betting lines have been really heavily in favor of Cincinnati winning this game. So just keep that in mind. A pretty big shift there in the betting market. It's a 44 Vegas game total for the third highest on the slate here between these two games. With Cincinnati being 2-point home favorites, they have a 23-point team implied total, 6th best on the slate. Indianapolis at 21, 11th best out of the 22 teams. Indianapolis number 12 in pass protection, Cincinnati number 10 in the defensive pass rush. Pretty even there. Can't get much closer, but the pass DVOAs at 19 and 19 are that much closer. Really what this is telling me is studs eat in these particular situations. Somebody like a Michael Pittman, I think, are the biggest beneficiaries where, hey, offensive line's kind of a stalemate, defensive back, and however this pass game is going is also a stalemate. I think in those situations, somebody like a Michael Pittman is going to get his. So wouldn't be shocked to see him with 9 or 10 receptions, 10 plus in a particular matchup like this, especially if it's going to be a closer game and they have the entire playbook to kind of work from. Getting into the run blocking, Indianapolis number 24 in offensive run blocking, Cincinnati number 28. So that's a red-on-red matchup. Just kind of telling me that Indianapolis has kind of struggled in the run game in terms of a play-to-play basis, getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. They're probably going to find that quite a bit easier than usual against the Cincinnati defense. However, the explosive plays, the fantasy relevant stuff, DVOA-wise, they are number 6th in the offensive run DVOA, Cincinnati 29th. This is telling me that Indianapolis should be very good on the ground. Zach Moss is certainly going to be a popular play, a little bit more expensive than he was last week when he was also very popular and didn't produce any points. I think this is a situation with the pass game being pretty neutral. The run game is going to be a little bit more effective than they're used to on a play-to-play basis and probably pretty explosive. Don't be shocked to see Zach Moss have a really solid game here. So not going to shy away from Pittman, not going to shy away from Zach Moss in this particular matchup. Getting into the Cincinnati side, they are at number 11 in offensive pass protection. Colts number 5 in the defensive pass rush. A little bit in the favor there of Indianapolis, telling me that Cincinnati's probably going to have to get the ball out quickly. Probably going to take a few sacks in this particular matchup with Browning in there. Just keep that in mind. Not sure if they were trying to protect Browning or anything in this matchup last week, but Browning was highly effective. I want to say he was like 18 of 21 passing at one point, or maybe he finished there, but he was pretty good, which kind of tells me maybe he was not pushing the ball down the field. I want to say Jamar Chase had like 5 or 6 receptions for 40 yards or something, so it wasn't like he was being explosive. Just keep that in mind. They will probably get the ball out quick or try to get it out of their hands quick to avoid a pass rush like this. Defensive pass DVOA, Indianapolis top 10 at number 9, Cincinnati middle of the pack at 16. Again, in the favor of Indianapolis's defense here, just telling me that Cincinnati's going to have to grind it out in the air game if they're interested in moving it, but it seems like they kind of did that last week. Not really airing it out, just kind of grinding it down the field, so don't be shocked to see more of the same this week. The run game looking a little bit better here for Cincinnati, same as Indianapolis. So number 22 versus number 21, defense versus offense here in the run blocking, run stopping. That's an even out matchup. In those situations, studs eat. I don't think Joe Mixon's a stud at this point in his career. Seeing him be pretty inefficient a lot of these seasons. Either way, might be a little bit easier sledding for Cincinnati in the run game than they're perhaps been used to. Defensive run DVOA even more in the favor of Cincinnati here. 14 versus defense at number 26. This is telling me that, hey, Joe Mixon probably going to be pretty effective, especially if Cincinnati is trying to get the ball out quick. I wouldn't be shocked to see him with 4 or 5 receptions in a matchup like this either. One thing to note, Indianapolis does play very fast, so they get the ball out quick. Snap, snap, snap. They're getting those plays off. Cincinnati, almost exact opposite. They're in the red there for most of their pace of play. So we've seen these Indy games, reached the over pretty frequently this season. Wouldn't be shocked to see Cincinnati have a similar effect where, hey, they're grinding out these quick throws, and then the run game's just effective, and they have these long, methodical drives. Wouldn't be shocked either to see the kicker here kick 2 or 3 field goals in this matchup. So not sure what the weather is like in Cincinnati, but keep that in mind if you're placing some prop bets on the kickers. Cincinnati should be pretty good in this environment. All right, Denver and the Chargers is the other third-ranked game on the slate. We have Denver heading into Los Angeles, and Los Angeles as 2.5-point home favorites, giving the Chargers a 23.25 team implied total. 5th best on the slate. Denver at 20.75 is the 12th best on the slate. Getting into the Denver side, they're number 27 in offensive pass protection. Chargers number 4 in the defensive pass rush. Telling me, hey, Chargers should be able to get after Denver in this and apply some pressure. They might need to get the ball out a little bit quicker. However, a lot of this value was taken with Bosa in there. We know he went out with an injury a few weeks ago, so that could be a little bit different here. But really taking a lot of sacks here in Denver, probably on Russell Wilson taking those, not necessarily the offensive line, but keep that in mind. Chargers could find themselves with a few sacks in this game. The pass DVOA, though, pretty heavily in the favor of Denver. They're middle of the pack at 17, but Chargers at number 27 in the red there. This is telling me that Denver should be okay moving the ball despite maybe needing to get the ball out a little bit quicker. That could lead to some more dump-offs to the tight ends and running backs in a particular matchup like this, so just keep that in mind. But we've really seen Sutton be the main beneficiary in the pass game this season, so wouldn't be shocked if that continues here, and they're pretty effective passing the ball in a matchup against the Chargers this week. The run blocking, very similar. Denver number 15 in the run blocking, Chargers 23rd in stopping the run. In the favor here of Denver, wouldn't expect too much of a struggle for Javonte Williams in this matchup. Wouldn't be shocked to see Jaleel McLaughlin have a explosive play or two in this matchup as well. Denver offensive run DVOA number 12, Chargers number 22 in the defensive run DVOA, further suggesting that Javonte Williams and maybe McLaughlin will have a pretty solid week this week in terms of efficiency. And really, Javonte Williams should be the bulk of the workload there for the Broncos. On the Chargers side, number 6 in offensive pass protection, Denver 13th in the defensive pass rush. Chargers number 7 in offensive pass DVOA, Denver number 28 in the defensive pass DVOA. I think this is skewed from their early season struggles here in Denver. They've been pretty solid the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. So this is maybe a little bit closer than it perhaps looks like on paper. Chargers really down to Ekeler and Keenan Allen in terms of the pass game. We could have Josh Palmer coming back, which would be really good for Herbert in the pass game in terms of getting the ball moving down the field. Quentin Johnston finally had a game that was fantasy relevant in week 13, so certainly keep that in the back of your mind. Wouldn't expect it to be good for him in this particular situation against Denver. Like I said, their defense has actually been pretty good the last 5 or 6 weeks. Just mainly buoyed probably by that 70-point matchup that they gave up to the Miami Dolphins earlier this season. Getting into the run blocking, this could be Austin Ekeler and Kelly coming to life here. They're number 28 in offensive run blocking, number 25 in the run DVOA, but fortunately for them, Denver number 31 in stopping the run and number 31 in defensive run DVOA. So second worst team in the run game. Again, some of that is a result of the Miami game, but this is really telling me that the Chargers probably find the run game a little bit more effective than they're perhaps used to. Indicative, especially with this pass DVOA heavily in their favor, that Chargers actually might be pretty good at moving the ball against this Denver defense. Anything can happen on any given Sunday, but just keep that in mind. It does look like, on paper, Chargers should be a little bit more effective than they're used to in the run game. Then the pass game should be fairly effective. Now, the run game, it sounds like they're kind of probably going to start limiting Ekeler's touches, maybe getting Josh Kelly a little bit more involved there. So probably avoiding that type of stuff in a cash game for sure. Tournaments, certainly a risky play. The Chargers, of note, do play very fast. So keep that in mind. All right, let's get into the next game on the slate. That would be Detroit and Chicago. So a lot of these late games were the first ones that we went over. Keep that in mind. Most of the points for your DFS lineups probably going to be scored in the afternoon games. Getting into the Detroit-Chicago game here, we have Detroit going into Chicago as 3-point road favorites. It's a 43 Vegas game total. Again, 5th best on the slate. That 23 team implied total for Detroit, tied for 6th best on the slate. Chicago, a 13th best at 20 team implied total. Detroit offense, number 5 in offensive pass protection, number 9 in offensive pass DVOA. Chicago dead last in generating any sort of sack pressure. Defensive pass rush is 32. Defensive pass DVOA 25. Really telling me that Detroit should have plenty of time to throw the ball, and they should be very explosive when they are throwing the ball. Obviously going to be good for Laporta, going to be good for Amon-Ra St. Brown to have that time. Those are typically the top 2 targets, but we also have deep dart throws that we can get in Josh Reynolds and Jamison Williams. I think those 2 are certainly in play in tournaments as well. Wouldn't be shocked to see either of those have a touchdown in this particular matchup. So keep that in mind. Goff, probably a sneaky DFS play stack here against the Chicago defense. The run game's a little bit more tight there. Number 2 versus number 2 in the run blocking and run stopping. So pretty even matchup there. Studs eat type of situation. Not sure if Montgomery necessarily a stud. Gibbs seems like he's pretty good. So those guys, can they overcome this kind of stalemate on the offensive line? Montgomery seems like probably more he's going to get what's blocked. Gibbs does seem like somebody who could rip off some explosive plays, just being better than the defenders on the other side. On the run DVOA, Detroit number 4, Chicago number 11. This is in the favor of Detroit, but really all season Chicago's been pretty solid against the run. Wouldn't be shocked though to see Detroit, impose their will. We did see David Montgomery, I think, almost hit 100 yards and a touchdown in their matchup last time, in that revenge game narrative. So that could be in play as well. Getting into the Chicago side, they're number 26 in offensive pass protection. Detroit, number 22 in the pass rush. So they've really kind of dropped off here in this particular category. Wouldn't be shocked to see Fields have a little bit of additional time compared to what he's perhaps used to behind this Chicago offensive line. The pass DVOA 25 for Chicago, number 13 for Detroit's defense. In a situation like this, I think it's more the DJ Moore show and Kmet and probably no one else there in Chicago. That's the only routes that I'd be kind of looking at or interested in DFS. Kind of a cheaper option at tight end, and then DJ Moore if you want to get involved in this particular game on the opposite side of the Detroit team. Getting into the run game, Chicago number 9 in run blocking. Detroit number 11 in stopping the runs, pretty even up. Now in Chicago, we're not really sure what that backfield's going to look like. We did have Foreman go out with injury last week, and we did see the backfield kind of shift from Herbert owning the backfield to more of the rookie Roschon Johnson stepping in and getting a lot of the workload. If Foreman comes back, I'm assuming it's just going to be more of a 3-headed rotation and not any sort of Chicago running back that you're going to want in fantasy. So keep that in mind. I do have Herbert in several fantasy leagues where he's sitting on my bench just because I don't trust his workload in this particular thing, especially if Foreman comes back. So I think that's going to be one that you're going to want to avoid. In the run game, it might just be, hey, I just want Justin Fields, and that's it for the Chicago team. The run DVOA, Detroit is number 7 on defense, Chicago 15. Kind of implying here Chicago is going to struggle to move the ball. Just looking at the DVOAs, they're going to be behind the ball to Detroit's defense. And in situations like this, always a possibility that the field goal kicker gets 3 to 5 attempts to put some points on the board for the Chicago team. So keep that in mind. Really not interested in a ton of people from the Chicago side outside of Fields and probably DJ Moore and perhaps the kicker there. All right, let's get into the next game on the slate. Carolina and New Orleans. Tampa Bay, Atlanta. So another NFC South matchup here. We have Tampa Bay going into Atlanta. Atlanta actually 2-point home favorites here. It's a 41 Vegas game total, so dropping down pretty quick here into the low 40s. And this 2-point home favorite gives Atlanta a 21.5 team implied total, 10th best on the slate. Tampa Bay at 19.5 is the 14th best team implied total on the slate. Getting into the Tampa Bay side, they are number 17 in offensive pass protection. Atlanta 28th, suggesting Tampa Bay should have some time to throw the ball. Defensive pass DVOA number 18 for Tampa Bay, Atlanta 29th. Suggestive that, hey, Tampa Bay probably going to be somewhat explosive as well. So Mike Evans has certainly benefited from this. Would expect that to continue. Do not mind him in DFS tournaments. I think he's got a ceiling in a matchup like this. So good for him. But really, that's the one person. If you want to get Cade Otton, he runs a lot of routes there. If you think Tampa Bay is going to get down, to the end zone and kind of focus on those two guys, certainly in play as well as more of a dart throw play. Getting into the run blocking, Tampa Bay number 29 in run blocking, 27 in run DVOA. Atlanta number 10 and number 10. Highly indicative that Tampa Bay's run games are just going to continue to struggle in this. Rachaad White does get it done through the air a lot of times, so don't be shocked to see him really go for like 15, 16 rush attempts, 35 yards, end up with 6 catches for 60 yards and a score, and he just happens to get there in fantasy. But probably an avoid for me in terms of tournaments. I don't think he's got the ceiling based off of this matchup to put up a huge week unless he goes on the right side of touchdown variance with multi-touchdowns in a matchup where the offense is moving the ball via the air and they get close and then he punches it in. So keep that in mind. Always in these situations where, hey, pass game looks like it's going to be pretty effective and the run game pretty ineffective. Always interested in a kicker in those situations too, especially in a dome. I wouldn't be shocked to see, several like 20, 30-yard field goals end up coming the way of the Tampa Bay kicker in this matchup. Getting into the Atlanta side, 25th in offensive pass protection, 23rd in offensive pass DVOA. Tampa Bay 14 and 14. This is in the favor of Tampa Bay's defense, telling me that, hey, Atlanta's probably going to have to get the ball out a little bit quicker. They're going to be grinding it out. They're going to be grinding it out and have to, kind of take their time, slowly, methodically moving it in the air game. Probably not a good game for Desmond Ridder in a matchup like this, so just keep that in mind. Drake London, probably the only person I would be interested in this particular pass game. Pitts, we've really seen not have any sort of ceiling this season. Jonnu Smith, we've seen him certainly get involved, and if they're trying to get the ball out a little bit quicker, we could see him get involved in the pass game as well as the running back, so keep that in mind. Cordero Patterson seemingly taking some work away from Tyler Algier in the running back department, so that could continue, and we could see him with some targets as well. In the run game, it's a little bit better for Atlanta. Number 17 and number 17 in the run blocking and run DVOA categories. Tampa Bay matching them at number 19 and number 17. Kind of a neutral situation here. Really telling me if Atlanta wants to move the ball successfully down the field, they're going to have to do it in the run game. Bijan Robinson certainly very successful there, and the only option that you're going to want from Atlanta in the running back category there. Atlanta does play actually fairly quick overall, just because they're usually trailing in a lot of their games. But keep that in mind. They could push the pace here with the pass game struggling and this run game being kind of a neutral situation. Younghoe Koo also in play here as a kicker for some of your seasonal long leagues. All right, getting into the next game on the slate. This one could be a little bit more explosive with some points here for Minnesota. Minnesota heading into Las Vegas. This is a dome game in Vegas there. Minnesota actually 3-point road favorites, all the way down at 40.5 for the Vegas game total. Minnesota 21.75 team implied total is number 9 on this slate. Vegas down there at 15th best on the slate with 18.75 team implied total. Getting into the Minnesota side, number 18 in offensive pass protection, Vegas 20th in that pass rush. Pretty stalemate there. They do have Max Crosby, who is very good at his job and can apply some pressure, but he's really the only one there from Vegas. They're not generating a whole lot of sacks. It's a neutral situation there for Minnesota's pass game. In the pass DVOA, number 15, Vegas number 18, again, slightly in the favor of Minnesota. This is just telling me it's kind of a neutral situation in those. Studs eat. Justin Jefferson coming back. We could certainly see him have an explosive week against this Vegas defense, who kind of, bottom of the barrel sort of defense this season, probably bottom 10 unit. Don't be shocked to see Minnesota's pass game be okay in this, moving the ball, especially with Jefferson there, opening up their playbook a little bit more. The run blocking looks to be a little bit better of a situation for Minnesota than they're perhaps used to. Number 19 in run blocking, Vegas 30th in stopping the run, so they do give up chunk yards pretty frequently there, and I would expect this to continue with Minnesota. The offensive run DVOA is number 29 for Minnesota, number 24 for Las Vegas. So Minnesota has been very non-explosive in the run game. This is a situation where I could see them giving up a few, Vegas that is, giving up a few explosive plays to this Minnesota offense. And with Justin Jefferson coming back, Minnesota here being a little bit more explosive in the run game, I do see Minnesota being pretty effective on offense here. Ty Chandler, a dart throw in tournaments. He's pretty fast there. I want to say 4.37, something like that in the 40. Wouldn't be shocked to see him get a carry that he takes, 30, 40 yards to the house, even longer than that perhaps. So he's a really deep dart throw. But Madison's going to get the vast majority of the work. And perhaps if you think Max Crosby's getting after the quarterback, he could see it himself with a few more targets in this matchup too. He's not out of the realm of possibility of scoring a touchdown in here. So Madison, while he probably doesn't have a huge ceiling, if he's cheap, he could be a pretty solid option in DFS. Las Vegas side, number 14 in offensive pass protection, Minnesota 19th in the pass rush. Kind of slightly in the favor of Vegas there. Probably going to have roughly a standard amount of time to throw. So Aiden O'Connell probably not going to be under a ton of pressure from this Minnesota defense, but the pass DVOA is kind of a huge mismatch for Vegas there. Number 27 in offensive pass DVOA, Minnesota top 10 in the pass DVOA. They do run some unique looks here on defense. This could really confuse somebody like Aiden O'Connell, a rookie. So if you've watched any sort of film, Minnesota will have 7 people on the line of scrimmage, all in a line, and then they'll have 4 people 15 yards back, all in a row. And that's the looks that you get very often. And as the ball is hiked, people are all just going whatever direction at some point that they're going to eventually, go into the coverage that they're looking at. They call it kind of a cover zero, so keep that in mind. I think Aiden O'Connell in a situation like this, especially with the past DVOAs being like this, we could see him actually struggle and turn the ball over quite often. So I'm not, even though the sack game doesn't look like it's going to be super strong for Minnesota, I would be not shocked at all to see them have a pick six in a situation like this, or have 3 or 4 interceptions in a matchup like this against this unique Minnesota defense against a rookie. So keep that in mind. Wouldn't be shocked to see that happen. Run game not looking super good for Vegas. Number 26 and number 28 in their run blocking categories. Minnesota 16th, middle of the pack, but also top 6 in the run DVOA. So they've been pretty effective at stopping some of these explosive runs. Josh Jacobs has not been explosive at all this season, so I think that continues. Vegas looking like they might have a lot of turnovers there, struggling to move the ball in the run game. This really, I think Minnesota's defense is a very, very good play this week. I don't know what they are for pricing, but if you can get to them, I think they're a very, very solid play this week. And if they're going to be getting a lot of turnovers, we could see Minnesota's offense here have a pretty explosive week. And don't be shocked to see some of their players in a Millie Maker lineup of sorts where, hey, we got people scoring multiple touchdowns. whether it's Hawkinson or Alexander Madison, somebody like that, Jefferson getting in at the end zone. Maybe it gets spread around, but I think Minnesota's offense is just going to get some opportunities based off of the defensive situation here for Vegas and that unique defense that Minnesota runs. All right, getting into the 8th game on the slate, kind of interesting. 2 solid teams here, the Rams and Baltimore, but they both have pretty decent defenses. So down here at a 40 Vegas game total, we do have Baltimore as 7.5-point home favorites, 8th best game total on the slate. Wow. All right, Baltimore 23.75 team implied total, 3rd best team implied total on the slate. Los Angeles down at 16.25 is the 19th best on the slate out of 22 teams. Offensive pass protection for the Rams, number 4. Baltimore, number 1 in the defensive pass rush category. Los Angeles, number 13 in defensive pass DVOA. Baltimore, number 1 in defensive pass DVOA. So Baltimore, number 1 against the pass. Los Angeles probably going to be under a little bit more duress than they're used to. Looking like they're not going to be super explosive either. Fortunately for the Rams, they're kind of built to be able to handle some of these underneath things. Higbee's an okay tight end. They have Cooper Kupp. They got Puka Nacua, and we've seen the running back this season have a really solid pass game option there. Kyren Williams kind of came out of college as more of a pass catching back. And I could see him getting very heavily involved in a game like this where they need to get the ball out quick and they're just trying to grind out some of these drives. I would expect Kyren Williams to be upwards of 20, 25 touches in this, getting 5-6 targets along the way. In the run blocking units, number 8 across the board for the Rams, 13th and number 4 for Baltimore in the run stopping and run DVOA respectively. So really the run game looking like the better of the 2 options for Los Angeles in this. That's going to lead Kyren Williams to be the main focal point of the Los Angeles attack here. I think that's where they're going to have to grind out their drives is through Kyren Williams. And if you're looking at starting some of these Los Angeles players, probably take it with some sort of caution. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, certainly good in their own right, but looking like it's going to be a difficult matchup for them this week. Getting into the Baltimore side, number 24 in offensive pass protection. Los Angeles, number 18 in the defensive pass rush. Baltimore, 14th in pass DVOA. Rams, 17th in pass DVOA on defense. Pretty even matchups here. Nothing to write home about, I think. Baltimore just continues as is through the air, so getting it out to the tight end and getting it to Zay Flowers probably, and some OBJ mixed in there, and then kind of getting Aguilar and Bateman minorly involved as those fewer options, I guess, later options down in the pass game. On the run blocking, though, for Baltimore, looking very good. Number 5 in offensive run blocking, Rams 24th. Baltimore, number 1 in offensive run DVOA, Rams 21st. If you think Baltimore is going to have some pressure on them, you could see Lamar with a few more rush attempts in this matchup, and he's probably going to be pretty explosive considering this matchup against the Rams. And we also have Keaton Mitchell there in Baltimore, who we've seen be very explosive, get his fair share of work there. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him have a pretty solid game here against this Rams team. Kind of one of those big dart throws for Baltimore. I think we could be shocked to see just how good he actually ends up being. Maybe winning some people some $1 million in a tournament in this particular matchup. All right, we'll drop down to the number 9 game on the slate here, which is Carolina and New Orleans. Kind of a couple of gross teams here, but that's where we're at. Carolina heading into New Orleans. New Orleans 6-point home favorites on a 38.5 Vegas game total. Again, 9th best out of the 11 teams or 11 games. Saints at 22.25 are the 8th best team implied total on the slate. Carolina at 16.25 is number 19 on the slate out of 22. See Carolina red across the board for their offense, 28 in pass protection, 30th in pass DVOA, 27th in run blocking, 26th in run DVOA. The Saints, for their pass, number 30 in the pass rush, so haven't been generating a lot of sacks, but they are number 12 in pass DVOA, so not giving up a ton of explosive plays. What this is telling me is that, hey, Bryce Young might have a little bit more time to throw the ball in a particular matchup. In this particular matchup, we've really seen the rookie there, Mingo, get his target share vastly increased here in the last couple of weeks after Frank Reich got fired. So wouldn't be shocked to see him, with a little bit of a more surprising game this week. I think you can have him as a dart throw in DFS this week. I just think with the time to throw and Bryce Young seeming like he can throw with anticipation, I could see Mingo having a decent week this week against the Saints. The run blocking for the Saints, though, is kind of where it's at, or for Carolina, I guess, is going to be more where it's at. Saints number 21 and 25 in the run stopping and run DVOA. Carolina probably going to find it a little bit easier to run the ball against the Saints than they're perhaps used to. And I think Chuba Hubbard is going to be the biggest beneficiary there. Seems like he's taking over the backfield from Miles Sanders, so probably the one that you want to roster. I think you're fine starting him in seasonal leagues, but I wouldn't put him into your lineups for DFS unless you're kind of desperate to get somebody that's going to be very low rostered. On the Saints side, number 15 in pass protection, 21 in pass DVOA. Carolina 27th in pass rush, 20th in pass DVOA. On paper, this is looking like slightly in favor of New Orleans, like they're going to have some time to throw the ball, and then pretty stalemate there in the DVOA category. We've really seen Carolina have a lack of fantasy points given up in the air game, but that's mainly because the run game has been so poor this season. That's probably going to continue in a game like this where they got Kamara running the ball very effectively, Williams getting in there, Jamal Williams getting in there, being effective. But this is kind of telling me Saints going to be fine passing the ball. They're going to be running the ball all over Carolina. So that matchup, 29 and 32 for Carolina's defense. The Saints at number 11 and number 11. I think that's going to be how they end up moving the ball as well, just through Kamara. He's probably going to be pretty popular in DFS, but this is a low Vegas game total, so not sure how much back and forth there's going to be. It does seem like Carolina might be able to move the ball a little bit more effectively, and if they're doing that, it's probably going to be a long, slow, methodical drive down the field, burning time off the clock. I just don't know if the ceiling is going to be there for Kamara, but it certainly could see him get a multi-touchdown game in this particular matchup. But really, none of the Saints off the board for me. It looks like they're going to be pretty effective, and then Carolina probably going to be more effective offensively than we've seen in the past. But really, it's a low Vegas game total. I don't hate the over in this, so kind of hitting the over. I think Saints can score 24, 27. I think Carolina certainly can put up 20 points in a matchup like this. So keep that in mind. If you're in the prop betting business, I don't mind the over 38.5 here for the Carolina-New Orleans game. All right, getting into the last two games. We have two of them actually tied for the 10th best. So these last two games, Jacksonville and Cleveland without Trevor Lawrence, and then Houston and New York Jets. So I don't think Trevor Lawrence has actually been ruled out, but highly unlikely that he plays in this matchup. Cleveland actually 3-point home favorites at the moment. 33 Vegas game total, absolutely terrible, dropping all the way down into the low 30s when we're kind of nervous about low 40s. The low 30s, very, very panic alarm sound here. So Jacksonville, number 10 in offensive pass protection. Cleveland, number 3 in the pass rush. 11th in pass DVOA for Jacksonville. Cleveland, number 2 in the defensive pass rush. So looking pretty good here for Cleveland's defense, especially if we're going to have a backup quarterback in there. Cleveland defense certainly in play in DFS in light of probably having a pretty solid week there. Jacksonville's run game has been really bad, 31st and 24th. Cleveland number 1 and number 5 in the run stopping categories. Really looking at Travis Etienne, I don't think he gets there in the run game at all this week. He might be leaned on a little bit more heavily with CJ Beathard back there for Jacksonville if Trevor Lawrence isn't able to play. His saving grace is maybe getting some dump-offs in the pass game if they're getting under pressure, and CJ Beathard just looking to get the ball out quickly. Really in a matchup like this, I would say more of a Evan Ingram type matchup, dumping it off to the running back, Travis Etienne as well. I just don't see Jacksonville having a particularly great game with CJ Beathard back there. So if you can avoid the Jacksonville players, probably a good thing this week. Getting into the Cleveland side, they're number 19 in the offensive pass protection, Jacksonville 24th, slightly in the favor of Cleveland there. Pass DVOA, Jacksonville number 8, Cleveland number 28. Probably going to be a little bit of a struggle for Cleveland's pass game here, despite having a little bit more time to throw the ball than they're perhaps used to. We should have Joe Flacco back there most likely. I know Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR, has been cleared, but he might not play in this particular game. Might be Joe Flacco, and if that's the case, could certainly see Elijah Moore having a pretty solid week as he gets hyper-targeted from Flacco in a matchup like this. I just don't expect them to be super explosive based off of this paper matchup. In the run game, Cleveland 25th and 20th, been pretty poor. Jacksonville 4th and 3rd in stopping the run. I would expect that to continue. So really looking like Cleveland offense is going to struggle pretty mightily against this Jacksonville defense. I'm going to go ahead and just hit that purse siren. I think just the way Cleveland's kind of going here, they might have some time to throw, but it's probably going to be pretty ugly. Run game really going to struggle. I think Jacksonville up here. This is really a really nasty game. I just think it's going to be kind of the battle of the defenses, but Jacksonville, I think, ends up having a little bit better matchup in the pass game versus Cleveland in their overall just game. I wouldn't be shocked to see this hit the under. Yeah, I know I hit the purge siren there for an upset alert. It probably going to be more so based on the defensive play here. I think Jacksonville can just stop Cleveland, and I think they can squeak out enough talent on offense there to move the ball and maybe put themselves into position to win this game. We do have Christian Kirk also out for Jacksonville. I forgot about that. So Kelvin Ridley and Ingram probably even more so going to get targeted in this particular matchup, as well as Travis Etienne in the run game. So really gross one here. Like I said, I like the under actually. These defenses I think are just going to dominate. Wouldn't be shocked to see this be like a 10-6, 9-6 type of game. All right, let's get into hopefully a little bit better one. Houston and New York Jets, same team implied totals, or Vegas game total anyway. We do have Houston going into the Jets as 3.5-point home favorites. Again, that 33 Vegas game total, putting Houston at 18.25, 16th best game team implied total. Jets all the way down at 14.75, number 22. They are the worst on the slate. Now, getting into the Houston side, they're 22 in offensive pass protection. Jets, number 6. They should be able to get after C.J. Stroud here, generate some sacks, so don't be shocked if we see that. Pass DVOA, Houston, number 4. Jets, number 4 in the pass DVOA. I think Houston finds it more of a struggle to pass in this particular matchup against the Jets in this game. So C.J. Stroud probably going to be off my player pool. I know he's been super good. I think this is a game where he struggles, in this pass game struggles. So if you got Nico Collins, Robert Woods, some of these guys, Noah Brown, that have been really successful, probably all right not starting them in this particular matchup against the Jets. And the run blocking, it's even worse. Houston, number 23 and number 30 in the run DVOA. Jets, number 6 and number 14. I really think the Jets are going to lock down Houston here. It's not going to look good for them. Houston probably going to have to get the ball out a little bit quicker, so perhaps you see Devin Singletary with some more receptions in this, but they also get Dare Ogunbowale involved in that aspect. So really, it's kind of a hands-off situation for me for this Houston team against this Jets defense. Now getting into the Jets side, a lot of turmoil this week. hey, we're switching quarterback. We got rid of Tim Boyle. He's off the team. We want Zach Wilson to start. Zach Wilson apparently says he doesn't want to start the way he's been treated by the Jets organization. He doesn't want to play. Weird situation. Either way, tumultuous. Looking at the game on paper, Jets number 30 in pass protection, 32nd in pass DVOA. Houston 21 and 21 on defense. That's in the favor of Houston's defense there. Jets likely struggle in the air game on this particular matchup, but 21's not too bad. You could see them be a little bit more effective than they're perhaps used to against the Houston defense here. The run stopping looks heavily in the favor of Houston, though, number 3 versus 30. And then Houston DVOA 13th versus the Jets 32nd offensive run DVOA. So run DVOA, pass DVOA, both at 32 for the Jets. Wouldn't expect a whole lot of points there either. Looking at Houston really struggling, looking at the Jets struggling. Pretty gross. I think both of these 33 Vegas game totals hit the under. So keep that in mind. I don't think I want any players from this particular matchup at all. All right, that's going to do it for the main slate. We got 3 games actually for kind of the island game matchups. Sunday Night Football, which is Philly versus Dallas. Very good game there. And then we actually have 2 Monday night games. So switching gears to more of an island game matchup, we're going to go into the Sunday Night Football matchup. It's a 51.5 Vegas game total, super high. Haven't been seeing a lot of 50s for the Vegas game total this year, so nice to see that. Dallas 3.5 point home favorites, 27.5 team implied total. Philly at 24 for their team implied total. Philly side 20th in offensive pass protection, Dallas 17th in the pass rush. Pretty neutral there for the Philly pass protection. Pass DVOA wise, Philadelphia number 10, Dallas number 7 on defense. Again, pretty stalemate there. In situations like this, I think A.J. Brown's going to be the biggest beneficiary. I think it's just going to be a standard day at the office, and he's the one that's really going to be more explosive. So if I'm going the route of the pass game, it's probably going to be A.J. Brown. We did get Dallas Goedert cleared, and typically when Goddard's been in there, we've really seen a dip in production from Devonta Smith. So again, A.J. Brown in an island game type matchup is probably the one person from the pass game I would be putting into my pool, along with the quarterback. Obviously, Hurts always in play. The run blocking side, Philadelphia number 18. Dallas has been top 10 at number 8. And then run DVOA, Philly number 5. Dallas number 9 at stopping the run. Really telling me that Philly is going to have to grind out any sort of points in this with this Dallas defense. And really, that's what it says on paper. I've heard some stuff. So Dallas, when they're facing these bottom teams, they've really beat up on them. But if they faced any sort of team that's pretty decent, they've really given it up to them. So they've only scored like 3 or fewer points in fantasy points on their defense when they've been playing these top teams. So don't be shocked to see Philadelphia actually put up quite a few points on this Dallas defense, despite the paper looking like it's more of an even matchup. So with that in mind, like A.J. Brown's, really a screaming play for me in this, along with Jalen Hurts. Probably going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting on this particular slate. So those 2 very interesting for me. On the Philadelphia side, I think you can get Swift in there, but really those 2 would be my main focus for the Philadelphia side. On the Dallas side, number 13 in offensive pass protection, Philly 15th in the pass rush. Pretty much a stalemate there. But the pass DVOA, Dallas number 6, Philadelphia number 24. We've seen Philadelphia get torched in the pass game. The number 1 receiver always does really well against them. So CeeDee Lamb certainly in play in this, but then you're going to start getting expensive if you're putting in CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown into your matchups. But I think that is a very wise play based off of what this paper is showing. Now in the run blocking, it's pretty even there. Defensive run stopping for Philly at 14, Dallas at 13 for their run blocking. Even up. Studs eat scenario. Pollard not looking like that this season, but just keep that in mind. Pretty neutral situation. Run DVOA for Philly, number 8, Dallas 19, telling me that they're probably going to struggle a little bit on the ground. And really, Dallas is going to go the pass game route to move the ball against this Philadelphia defense. Very high Vegas game total here. They're expecting to put up some points. Actually, just kind of based off of paper, it's looking like that might hit the under. But when you get into a little bit more context, that Dallas defense has been really poor against these upper teams. I could see Philadelphia putting up some points. Dallas certainly looks like they should be able to put up some points in this matchup. So 51.5, probably a pretty solid total there. Really looking at the CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts type stacks in there. I think Jalen Hurts can score a couple of those touchdowns in the run game as well. So finding the right pieces beyond that. Dallas has, Ferguson. They have Cooks, who's probably a little bit cheaper. We have Goddard coming back from injury. He might be cheaper. So keep those guys in mind. But probably going to need to find a cheaper option to fit in some of those three other players. All right, getting into the Monday Night Football game, we have a 2-game slate, so we'll treat it as a 2-game slate. Number one game on the slate is Tennessee heading into Miami. Miami 13-point home favorites. It's a 46.5 Vegas game total, giving Miami a 29.75 team implied total. Number one on this 2-game slate. Tennessee at 16.75 is actually the third out of 4 teams on this slate. Getting into the Tennessee side, number 29 in offensive pass protection, Miami number 7 in the defensive pass rush. And then pass DVOA, Tennessee 22nd, Miami 11. This is telling me Tennessee probably going to be under pressure and not be very explosive in this pass game. DeAndre Hopkins, in a 1-game matchup, doesn't look like it's going to be particularly great for him. They're going to need to get the ball out, quicker. Phillips, Chigaquanquo, that's maybe your best options there for the Tennessee pass attack. We did see Derrick Henry kind of have an injury pop up this week. Some speculation whether or not he would make it into the matchup this week. So Tajay Spears actually could be very intriguing in this particular setting, especially a small game slate. Wouldn't be shocked to see him have quite a few targets based off of this matchup. And then getting into the run blocking, Tennessee number 16. Miami's been kind of, a little bit below average, 17th in stopping the run. Tennessee 13th in run DVOA, Miami 20th in run DVOA. So really looking like Tennessee, if they want to move the ball, they're going to do it most effectively on the ground. Again, Tajay Spears, if we have Derrick Henry kind of limited or out in this, he actually seems like he'd be a pretty solid play. Miami side, we're going to probably have a lot of players that we're interested in. The pass game looks like it's the better of the two options. So Miami number 3 in the offensive pass protection, Tennessee number 11 in the defensive pass rush. And then number 3 in offensive pass DVOA for Miami, 30th in the pass DVOA for Tennessee. Really explosive. They're going to have some time to throw the ball, but it looks like it's going to be an explosive week for Miami. I am interested in both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in this particular matchup, especially considering the run game looks like it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle than perhaps Miami is used to. So Miami is number 1 in offensive run blocking, but Tennessee number 7. And then the run DVOA, Miami number 2 on the offensive run DVOA, Tennessee number 1 in defensive run DVOA. We've really seen them shut down some teams, so wouldn't be shocked to see Mostert and Achane have a pretty mild week this week, and then it really gets focused for Tua and Tyreek to really blow up the matchup where, hey, this is maybe one of those Tua Tagovailoa 5 or 6 touchdown games. Tyreek Hill sees 3 of them. Waddle, gets his share, and then one of the running backs gets in on a pass game attempt too. That's how I think that game's going to go. Getting into the final game overall for the adjusted line play report this week. Green Bay heading into New York Giants. 6.5-point road favorites for Green Bay. It's a 36.5 Vegas game total, so pretty poor. 10 less than the previous game. Giants 15 team implied total is the worst on the slate. Green Bay at 21.5 is the second best. Green Bay, number 8 in offensive pass protection, number 8 in pass DVOA. Giants 31st in pass rush, 16th in pass DVOA. This is telling me Green Bay is going to have plenty of time to throw the ball, and they might be pretty explosive here. They are a pretty explosive pass game in general. Jordan Love going to have time to throw. If Christian Watson plays, he's certainly a good deep threat. Jaden Reed is also in play there. Dobbs we've seen get involved deep. Dontavian Wicks if Watson isn't able to go. Certainly a lot of options for Green Bay's pass attack here if they're going to have a lot of time. The run game, Green Bay 20th, Giants 27th in stopping the run, slightly in the favor of Green Bay there. Offensive run DVOA, Green Bay 23rd, the Giants 30th. So above average game here for the running backs there in Green Bay, but a really good matchup for the pass game. Don't be shocked to see Green Bay be able to move the ball at will in a particular matchup like this. Jordan Love, pass game, looking like the better of the two options. So if you're attacking the Green Bay side, that's the route that I would go. Giants side, 32 in offensive pass protection, 31 in pass DVOA. Green Bay 12th and 15th in the pass DVOA categories and pass rush. I'd expect, they're kind of middle of the pack, a little bit above average there. Giants, just going to be another poor day for them against this Green Bay defense. So I'm going to expect them to be able to move the ball super effectively in the air. We've seen that kind of all season. The run game looks to be the better of the two options. So Giants also 32nd and 31 in those categories. Green Bay, though, number 25 and 23 in stopping the run in the run DVOA. This is telling me Barkley is probably going to be their best option, especially if the Giants are trying to get the ball out quickly. He's going to see a few more targets. He certainly looks like he's going to be a lot better than he's been used to in the run game in this particular matchup as well. So Barkley, I think you can fit into a lineup from the Giants side, and then Green Bay pass attack and that Miami team really putting the wood to the Tennessee Titans there. All right, I think that's going to do it for this show, the Week 14 Adjusted Line Player Report. Again, episode number 59 here, so thanks for sticking with me through all of these episodes. Really appreciate it. If you haven't already and you made it this far and you're listening, hit that subscribe button. Really appreciate it. Hit the bell so you get the notifications when I send out these videos a couple a week. So you will be able to be on top of all of the adjusted line play info and how we determine, the game scripts and player outcomes in these matchups. Highly successful. So hopefully you can get in on that action and win some money. That's what we're here for. I'm always going to give out this information for free. And hopefully you appreciate that. So we can go out and not spend any money when we're going into our info grab for the week. That's what we're here for. Give you additional info to make all of these decisions, and hopefully you can put all these together and make a successful year in fantasy, either in the seasonal long leagues or your DFS tournaments, and have a solid year. So thanks for watching, everybody. We're going to get going here. Have a good one and enjoy your weekend. Bye.